Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life and Worship. We're talking to Chad and Crystal Berry. We're going to talk about life, we're going to talk about worship, we're going to talk about how we do it. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to be able to share some stories, for us to be able to share our lives and some insight into what we do. Lord, we just love to worship you. We love to praise you, Heavenly Father, and we love to do it with people around us that have the same mindset. We thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak freely and talk about you and your name and your worship and everything we do. In Jesus' holy name, amen. All right, so I'm here. I already did an announcement piece, but I'm here with the Berries. I'm here with Chad and Crystal Berry. Chad and Crystal are leaders at our church, for sure. You guys hold different facets, right? And I want to kind of dive into, number one, the first thing we're going to get into is just your youth. What was your youth experience with church, youth group? It could be from children's church to youth group to young adult. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time like with a bunch of weird stories from your youth, like, oh, my favorite thing was when we all got to make pigtails and stuff, but just kind of what was your experience as a young child through church? What did your parents look like and what did they do and all those kind of things? So I'm going to start off. Either one of you can answer this question. The first question is just basically, what did your childhood as a Christian look like? I mean, did you... were you immersed in the church or were you not, from childhood? And neither one of you can jump off of this one.
Well, thanks for having us, Kenny.
Yeah.
We've been looking forward to sitting down with you and talking about worship on a new level.
Right.
I know I'll probably learn something new about Crystal based on your questions, too. So
Yeah.
It should be a great set of
You can plead the
points.
fifth, too, if there's anything
Yeah.
that...
You'll see some of my eyes look at him
Right.
and say, don't go down that.
She'll give you the Islander side look.
Let's see. Growing up in church, I grew up in church myself. I don't know of a period in my childhood and youth that I wasn't in church with the family. That was raised by my parents and got to go to church that was, I guess I'd call it my grandparents' church. So when we moved back to this state, and I was 6 months old at that time. So I think we were at that church my whole young life.
And where was that at? Is that North Seattle?
That's
Seattle,
north of
Arlington?
Seattle, about an hour in Arlington.
Okay.
And so, I was raised there. And
were your parents leaders, like church leaders, worship leaders?
Not my parents.
Elders or anything?
My mom participated in like choir. That was kind of a formal weekly gathering they would do musically. I think my grandmother was in that too. My grandfather would serve on mission trips, part of the church, and like through some parts of the years, I don't really remember this as a youth, but like in later adulthood stuff, my grandmother was part of boards or something at one point too.
Okay. How about you, Crystal? Same thing?
Yeah, well, so I was born in Hawaii. I grew up in the church. My dad was the associate pastor of the church that we went to, so I'm technically a pastor's kid. Definitely immersed in everything. I went to a really small church, so my life as a child was always at church. My parents were leaders. They were very involved in just doing whatever the church needed. So we'll be there on a Saturday night, and we're cleaning the church. And so that's basically my upbringing, that just being around church family, and we did everything with them. So that was probably my life, is really just serving the church, being with my parents, go to someone's house and pray for a sick person. So that was really what I grew up with. And my parents really just showed that to serve people and to serve the church and to pray for people. So I want to say that I only knew that for the first 12 years of my life.
Was that on the island or was that here?
That was, so the way things kind of worked out is that, so born in Hawaii, we actually left when I was 6. So that's when my dad was a pastor. The way we got here to Seattle was that the church that we went to in Hawaii had a branch in actually here in Burien. And so we moved over, and knowing that, like, hey, we have a connection of churches, we'll go to that church. My dad didn't take on a pastor role there. We just started going. And then from there, I kind of just picked up the same habits when I was doing that back in Hawaii. I was very involved in my youth group. I was taking on leadership role at a really young age. My dad, sadly, my parents did separate when I was 10. But my mom was so faithful in bringing us to church. And that was one of her requirements. You have to come to church, and this is what's being asked of you. And so, I think it was my parents really just setting that up for me. It's just getting very involved. And that's where I got all my best friends. And I didn't really get involved with school friends. It was hang out with the church friends and be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There was always something to do at our church.
Was it the same way for you, Chad? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, always at the church helping out, doing stuff? That was your community, or was your community elsewhere?
No, I think I had different buckets and communities, but let's call it a more established church, mid-sized church that probably was a fluctuation of regularly 150, 200 people up to, gusts of 400 through those
on
decades.
Easter and Christmas.
Yeah, so I mean, like they would fill the 300 seat thing regularly on those big service days, and they would do big Christmas numbers and plays. But I wasn't around a like long weekends. There's always a recurring thing. I think of it more of an established system of a church. Like the building's pretty set. There's boards and budgets and projects. We did have major projects that would happen, and youth that would be involved that I remember being in major memories of.
I was a little bit more like Crystal. My dad being a pastor, a worship pastor, we were always at the church. We changed the garbage can liners. We mopped the floors. We did all those things because the churches we went to were all relatively small. And then when they would start to get larger, we would move to a different church and then start over. But they always needed so much help. They needed someone to mow the lawn. And my dad's like, well, I got 3 boys. So they mow all day long. They can go all day without a break. So there you go. You got them lawn mowing, that kind of stuff. What, as you became an adult, did you stay with church? Did you keep going to church as an adult once you graduated high school and like got on? Did you continue to go to church regularly, or?
I think church had a like I'm not gonna say a backseat role, a side role. So I graduated high school and went straight into a 4-year university in a different city. So down in big Seattle city. Yeah. So I moved away from home for college, but would go home regularly. Almost every other weekend was kind of the trend.
Okay.
And so I did visit churches locally while I was at college sometimes, or like, a Wednesday gathering. I wouldn't say it was religious and constant, but there were several that I would visit or friends knew of. So we would go as a small set of group of friends. And but when I was home for the weekend, I would go to my church. Often be involved with music.
Was that something that you wanted to do, like while you were at college, is go to church, or do you go because you're like, oh, well, I've always gone to church and my friends are going, so I'll go as well? Or was it something you're like, I really want to seek a church in the college area that I'm at or whatever?
It was less of I think it was like a small level of routine missing for myself.
Right.
Also mixed of, not to like, in a healthy form of guilt, like you should haven't been to church a while, you should go. Right. So there's a little bit of that, but it was never like, oh, I just craved a worship moment, or I craved to go study the Bible in a Bible study group. Like, that wasn't what drew me in.
Right. And you, I mean, same thing with you. You were pretty involved in leadership in your youth group and stuff like that. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here, but can you explain a little bit about your youth group, like your experience there? Because I know from what you said, I had a completely different experience about youth group than you did, you know, and it sounded like you really love that culture.
For sure. I mean, I did grow up in a Filipino church, so I mean, it's very family oriented. A lot of the people coming in that was coming to this church was people coming from the Philippines that were looking for a community. So it was a natural Filipino community that loved the Lord, right? So, I mean, I think this is where I attest to a lot of who I am today is because of my youth group. So it was a cool setup how we had our youth group. When it came to Hope, I do see kind of these age brackets in my church. Like when you're youth, you're basically anyone under 18, you're youth. So
Right.
we just had a bigger youth because it was a bigger age span. But the way that our youth group worked was we had leadership roles. It was, think about like an ASB kind of thing you see at a high school where you have these very formal leadership roles. So we had a president of our youth group, a vice president, a secretary, a sergeant at arms, which is, and I'll tell you a little bit about those roles. So there are formal roles.
Like treasurer.
Treasurer. So there were kids between 15 and 19 taking on these leadership roles, but they were elected by the youth. So a lot of us who grew up in that church had opportunities to live in those types of positions. And so
Right.
we got mentored by young adults. So we called our young adults advisors. So when they graduated out of the youth group, we had advisors basically pouring into us.
Cool.
And so that was kind of the culture that I grew up in, is that someone was always mentoring me. Someone was always vesting in me. Someone was always, Crystal needs a ride, or, my family needs X, Y, and Z. There was always someone in my adult group or my young adult group that can help. Or we also had a really involved youth pastor that would come and counsel us. So we just had this really healthy, I felt very healthy way of just loving on each other. I mean, we treat each other as family as well. So we went to every birthday party, we were just such a tight community as a church. So I just grew up, and that's where I learned a lot of my skills I use at my own job today, like being 13, 14, learning how to take down minutes, because that was part of what we learned in a youth group, right? Or how to manage money as a treasurer. Like the treasurer's job was to learn how to balance a book of the books.
Right,
Like
yeah.
how much did the youth group, what's the fundraiser? Like how much you brought in? How much did you spend? So I got so many life skills in my youth group. And so that was something I can always attest to, is that it was a place of growing in our faith, but our actual life skills. Right. So that was my upbringing. I think that's why there was a lot of investment of people at the church I was at.
And you like you said, it was more of a family kind of atmosphere. I've noticed, and just in my experience, Islanders like glued together
for sure.
as a family, as a culture. And like I've always felt a pretty cool pull to the family nature of that. Like when you're an outsider, you're an outsider. When you're a Holly, you're just like, they're like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But the second that you become family, you're like family,
For sure.
family, right? And it doesn't matter, how weird or different you are than they are. They're like, hey, come on in,
Yeah.
and it's always done tied together with food.
Yes.
All sorts of good food, all sorts of good
Yes.
food and stuff like that. What did you study when you were in college?
Well, I went to college, a couple topics of study. Originally, it was going to be a music major,
Okay.
and changed routes the first quarter in out of fear of extending to a fifth year instead of 4 years.
Right.
I saw some
After your first year, you kind of knew you didn't want to do 5.
first quarter. I was in the first quarter. I was around a lot of music majors, and they were freaking out. September, I'm going to be here 5 years. I was like, that sounds like a bad idea. I'm going to change. And that was just one of those simple decisions I made in life. There's not a lot that land in that kind of story for me, but that one made sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
So it kind of floundered from there. What I ended up, I'll say I was looking into like construction management for a while, but what I say I really focused on by the end, it became a focus on education, higher ed, a lot of purpose of university, and really skills and tools and the opportunities that are available in college, whether it's transfer or from a community college to a 4-year university, and so many things that exist that nobody even knows do exist,
Right.
whether it's free money or free help with homework and studies or tutoring. It's just the concept that there's way more available than we even know in our system.
For sure.
And then like the purpose of it, that's a whole other mini series of different shows. But
Right.
but that was what I ended up like tiptoeing into by the end with thesis and thesis study that was being supervised by a professor under the Department of Education.
Oh, wow. That sounds like, to me, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun.
Well, it was all rooted in I hated how I got here. Like I was like mad and almost vengeful at college as a university.
Like it's a rip-off type
Like
deal or
you
something?
just like left me stranded.
Right.
And not like I didn't get taught or school, but just like you learn about this opportunity, but I missed it because I didn't even know where to find it.
Right, yeah.
And so It was almost vengeful, but it led to some deep studies.
It seems like that's a lot of like colleges will do that. There's all these resources out there, but they're not gonna, because then they have to give them to you, right? So like if they're like, well, if you find it, you find it. If you don't, you don't. But nobody like really goes above and beyond. That's community college. I've had some experience with that. Not a whole lot. University, technical school and stuff. I taught math and science at our Union Hall, but that was through Bates College, so technical college. So those kind of things. But I mean, there's resources out there that nobody knows about and nobody knows how to get their hands on. And if you ask anybody, they don't know. They're like, oh, well, you just got to kind of go online and hope you hit the right button, you know? So you're going to college, you're going to graduate. Are you going to college as well?
So, a little, just going back. So during high school, I did like the Running Start program.
Yeah.
So I got a little college under my belt. And then after that, I actually, when I was in high school, I was like, I'm not going to go to college. I don't think that's my pathway. So I graduated high school, and then I did a few more community college classes. I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I didn't have anyone really speaking into that, like, what's your 5-year outlook of your life after this? I didn't really have, even though I had a lot of people around me, they just didn't ask me those questions.
You graduated, woohoo!
Yeah, and it was just like, okay, what's that? So I just went into the work field. I think I had a chance to, you know, after high school, go to the Philippines with my mom and kind of see the missions work a little bit and kind of get exposed to that. And I learned a lot being there. I mean, I was only in the Philippines for a month, but definitely we were in a rural area. And it's like, is this like, because, you know, at one point I thought maybe I want to do ministry, but then I went did that experience. It's like, I don't know if I had the stamina for this. So, I mean, and then I think, like, you know, in my early 20s, I was I'll be honest, I think I was a little bit floundering. I didn't know. I mean, I had church around. That's been my life, but I just never really had really life experience. And I think that's where I started kind of weighing, like, leaving the church, you know, covering of the church. And I want to figure myself out. And there was a time where I didn't go to church. It's like, you know, I've been told to show up here, do this, serve the church, and I just got tired. And so for a while, I just worked. I didn't know what I wanted, and I did a lot of running away from the Lord.
What'd you do for work?
So I took like little odd jobs here and there. A few of the jobs I picked up. So I actually tried to move back to Hawaii. I had a bunch of families still there, and I took on some, you know, waitressing jobs. Like, don't want to do, you know, health food services. That didn't work out. I picked up, you know, just temp jobs. I felt very lost at that time, you know, and that probably the most biggest awakening for me is that when I tried to live in Hawaii, that was almost like a 6-month stint. I was like, I can't live in Hawaii. This is not going to be sustainable. There's no jobs here. So I wanted to come back to Seattle, to Washington, and I had a friend say, hey, I'm going to get you a job. I was like, you're just going to get me a job? She's like, yeah, it's going to be in healthcare. You know, you'll probably just work in medical records. It's an easy job. I know the supervisor. You're just going to get this job. Just come back home.
Perfect.
And I'm like, okay. And so I came back home, and the person, how I knew this person is that we knew each other through churches. Like, we had our churches kind of knew each other, and we always had like these gatherings. So I was really close to her, and she was kind of my anchor in terms of, like, she was always talking about God with me. She knew that, you know, like, trying to bring me back in, and got me this job. And I actually fell in love with healthcare through this job.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my background now. Long story short, I did go to college, got my bachelor's in business, and I got my master's in healthcare administration. The person who did not think they would ever go to college went to go to grad school and
did more of it.
And my career is more around, which is ironic, I'm in healthcare education, which is Chad's studies, but I live in that world now, and I love what I do. Yeah.
Well, how early did you realize that you love doing like vocal, like worship and stuff like that?
For sure. So, I mean, this is the testament to my dad. My dad was the guy that could pick up every instrument and play. So, I'm the youngest of 3 girls. Every time we had a gathering or just hanging out with my family, my dad always brought out the guitar, and he'll just have us sing. And we will just do that at parties. We'll just do it at home. We'll do it at church. And so that was just already, the love of music got instilled by my dad. I always remember him playing just different some music at home, blasting it. And so just the love of music kind of got poured in there as a young age. And then I want to say in my like preteens, I had a really cool mentor at my church. He basically was at the time, I believe he was our youth pastor, I believe, at that time. He actually put together like a small band for youth kids. Right. And he's like, hey, I'm going to teach music. Whoever wants to learn music, I'm going to just like work with you guys for a few weeks and then see where it goes. And so he actually taught a few of us different instruments. I picked up the piano and learned it a little bit from him. And then, I mean, I naturally was already singing with my family. So like I brought playing the piano music and singing at the same time. And after that journey of doing this kind of mentorship with this pastor, he's like, hey, we're going to put people on the worship team. I was probably only 14 at that time.
Right.
And so...
Did you already know that you could sing?
I mean, I think being around, I mean, let's be honest, being Filipino, like we're born with a karaoke mic in our hand, you know, like yeah. I would hope like maybe 60% of us could sing. So like, I was always commenting on like, hey, you can sing, like, you can carry a tune, you know how to harmony, like harmony was very natural to me. It didn't have to be taught to me. Growing up in school, I was in choir. It's like I was around the choir. I did that, from middle school to high school, did jazz choir, all that stuff.
So you didn't have any problem getting up in front of people and singing and stuff like that, and you were pretty confident in your voice.
Yeah,
because I know that's some people are like, well, I never knew if I was any good. I just started doing it, and then everyone seemed to like it, so it was okay.
Yeah, it was very natural for me, I think, right, with picking up. I mean, I took choir because I thought that was an easy A for me because like, I can listen to a part and sing it. Yeah, so it was just something that was instilled around. And I mean, we always had people like come to my sisters and I were always do a special number and do these like things together. And so you always get the comments, right? But you always oh, that's just my aunt saying you're great. But but I didn't really realize the power of like worship leading until I got into worship team and like how to really use my voice for the Lord. Yeah. And so, that's where I think I got more of my confidence be able to lead worship. I was leading worship, the congregation at 14, 15. Okay. Yeah, at a really young age, picking a set to like, and having the adults telling what the adults, like, this is where we're going. Like, that was where I got a lot of the confidence. Okay. And my skills. I was on the worship team a lot. And so I think I just got better at the more I was on the team,
That's awesome. So you started off in music. What was your number one instrument? What was the instrument that you're going like, I'm going to be a professional thing?
I'll probably circle in for some awesome points of our story, but we like to say like I'm classically trained just through like school programs, right? And that's kind of my upbringing, even though I was around some music instruments at home too. But like I like to say, I started band in 5th grade when it started in school. There's a recorder session before that. I'd even skipped. Yes. I got like
3 blind mice.
Yep.
Yes, there's that one. But I had an awesome percussionist music teacher in would have been like 3rd grade. So he was around my 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th elementary school time. And because he's a percussionist of all instruments, xylophone related, he likes marimba band. Okay. So he built a marimba band in elementary school. So I'd be skipping recess to go play in marimba band. That was recess.
So you knew you loved music. I mean, when you're skipping recess.
Yeah, I do now. I didn't know it at the time. Right. That contrast, because I like kickball too. Right. Every kid. But so I think about that. I was always around versions of and cultures of music. So he loved Trinidad's like steel drums and marimba, and so you go through those tracks. But I started on clarinet through 5th grade band, and I knew that this is the instrument I will not stay with. In 1 year, you're required to do before you can switch to saxophone.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, I'm switching to sax first chance I get.
Did you like the sound of sax? Is that what you liked?
I actually wanted to be a trumpet player.
Okay.
It was one of those like, well, my dad played trumpet, so we have a trumpet, so therefore I should be trumpet. It's just like simple kid math. Yeah. But, they do their little buzzing test through band, and I was failing, so then they make the mouthpiece bigger to trombone, and I guess I failed that too. So like, well, you want to be a flute or a clarinet? I was like, well...
I'm definitely not going to be a flautist.
Well, you go through clarinet to get to sax. That's where we're headed. Yeah. I knew that. Yeah. That was one of those, like I said, one of those rare decisions. I knew that one too.
You're pretty self-aware for a young guy. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was back then, like you said, I'd have been playing kickball. I mean, like I can sing music anytime.
And I think what I've
Can't
realized,
play kickball every single day.
all those stories that you're helping me learn myself here today, Kenny. I think they all land at, I know what I don't want.
Right.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that, so therefore we go this way.
Right.
Yeah, so I was around that. So saxophone was the pick, and so really I played saxophone all the way through high school. That's what I was playing in college. You know, let's call them hobby bands, but they were concert bands and marching band and all those adventures there. But
did you ever play anything like freely, like write your own stuff on saxophone and like play with your buddies? You know, I hate to say it, a frat house because you don't see many saxophone frat house things, but I mean.
Yes, let me back up one step to say, well, I did jazz in high school.
Okay.
It helps with saxophone, so I do jazz bands and all that. The funny little mark here is I was in a frat house through college, and I did do saxophone at a gig.
I thought you got like a
Almost.
Cliff Notes. Like did you already talk to Chad about his frat days?
we had a surprising number of musicians in our cluster of the house. Some of the marching band, so to speak, and saxophones, but there was a really talented, like true music major, pianist, percussionist, crazy musician, and a few of those. And so I think we did a huge fundraiser one time, and you know, a golf course kind of thing. And so we did a 3-piece, you know, bass, piano, and sax jazz set, and
that's awesome.
So that I can say I did.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason I say that is because like you see the old school. 4-part quartet, you know, all the movies and everyone's like, get out of here or whatever, you know, all that kind of stuff for frat houses. But I know for me, like I was always surrounded by musicians. I always was because I was a musician. I played guitar. I hacked my way through guitar as a young man. I taught myself how to play piano. But once I realized you couldn't drag a piano to a party, I picked up guitar.
Yeah,
and my dad was a guitarist. The guitars all over the wall. Each and every one of these has some sort of sentimental value that's attached to either my dad or the history of me playing guitar. I love the instrument, but I was always surrounded by people who did that. It seemed like I drew people in who were, you know, played something, either drums or, they didn't really have cajones or box drums back then from where I came from. And I grew up kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So it was parties out in the middle of a rock quarry.
Yeah.
And so you brought guitars and then you just did cover songs of like Garth Brooks or, you know, Tim McGraw or something.
I can relate to that too. So like I learned
Arlington's not a very like large poppin' city, right? I mean,
not large. No, I would say
a little bit more rural.
I would say like the city limits of population was probably 15,000 at that time.
Right.
And like I don't know what the high school would have had, like 1,600 kids.
Right. Yeah, but that's not like that's everybody. That's not your graduating class is 1,600.
That's all four grades.
So that's everybody. But I mean, like kind of farm town mentality. I wouldn't say that like I wouldn't think of Arlington and go like, oh, that's a farm community. But definitely more of the
large percent
rural,
was
like kind of country way of going about things. And so if you're gonna go out and go to, and I was in high school, I went to parties. I was a football player, I was a baseball guy, but I could sing and play guitar. So anytime I went somewhere, someone would have a guitar in the house, and they'd go like, "Here, Kenny, sing," you know. And that's when I decided that I could do pretty well. I sang in church and stuff like that, but it's a different kind of music, right?
For sure.
I'm singing somebody else's song. I'm not singing something I like. I'm singing, you know, what my dad told me to sing or whatever they're playing for the worship set. Yeah. There, I mean, I was like, oh, I could really sing some cool stuff that I really like. I can do my own thing with some stuff too.
Yeah, so I can relate to that. I was gonna probably like piggyback on your story in a similar vein as that. Like, so I was fortunate enough to be taught in an actual formal version of a high school class,
right,
and learn some theory in high school. I thought that was kind of rare for the timing. And so with that, you know, we're messing around with pianos. I had one at home. I'd even write some music.
Yeah.
So I had different friends in different youth groups I would visit to. So I think that was a good period of church and music in my life, maybe separate or coinciding with each other, not necessarily together, but just running the same direction, different ways. Yeah. But I never learned guitar, so I walked into college, and my first roommate had a guitar sitting there, and I remember thinking that same line you were thinking. I was like, I can't play sax and sing. Or like I was like running into this. I'm like, I'm gonna have.
Unless you start studying ventriloquism or something.
And the piano was also one of those, like I was writing on that and messing with inversions and things. And,
Yeah.
But like you can't drag that to the party. And then
No.
so I always knew in some way I was like probably need to learn guitar. And then I walked in
Yeah.
the door and I was like, guess I'm gonna learn this
Yeah,
quarter.
look at that. Look what I can pick up and play.
So yeah, my first year of college I picked up the guitar almost entirely self-taught.
But being classically trained, you probably understood
Yes.
chords and runs and
And even
scales and stuff better than the average person just picking up a guitar. Like for me,
Yeah.
I picked up and the first thing I learned was cowboy chords. C, G, D, and then throwing some minors in there. Maybe an A. B minor was a really big one because I had to borrow it.
that's
you
always
know.
big. No, the four-string version, that's safer.
Yes, yeah, totally. But I mean, like, trying to train my hands to do that kind of stuff. But then going into like scales and stuff like that, I had to really like go, okay, I'm going to concentrate. I want to get better at my craft. I don't want to just play cowboy chords and throw a capo on all the time. I want to be able to make cool sounds up and down the neck. And that's where I started really teaching myself. But I didn't have a class. I mean, you already had a mind for that.
Yes.
And so it's probably a fairly easy transition.
Yeah, there's probably two buckets in my brain I think of that a lot. Like there's classically trained elements. I would always tell people like I learned the language of music.
Yeah.
And then all I had to do was learn the tool of a guitar.
Right, the dialect.
And like different dialects
Yeah.
and accents to the language. And so you're not really relearning 100% of music. You're really only learning 10% of music.
Well, and each instrument has its own like really cool inflections. I know for me, like I couldn't pick up a saxophone. I could probably make, I'm a musician, so you give me something and I'll make music out of it. But I wouldn't be able to play it the way that you do with the feeling and the bravado and the things that go along with it. For me, that's with the guitar. I'm hammer-ons and pull-offs. I play chords that don't even exist, but they sound cool. If I drop my pinky and cover these two while I'm doing this and then pull them off, it sounds cool. But that's all just like trial and error, learning and stuff like that. I mean, it's got to be the same thing with you and vocals, right? I mean, that's one thing I've been learning lately with my vocal coach is you can hit the right notes and it still doesn't sound dynamic. Where if you're a vocalist, if you're a singer, you bring a part to that instrument that nobody else has. You have your own vocal instrument that only you have. And that's a cool individual thing. Everyone can pick up a Gibson and it's going to sound like a Gibson depending on how they play it. There's going to be different dialects, so to speak. But with your vocal, that's you. That's your own tone, your own vibration. Sure. That's a cool thing to have, is to be able to sing confidently.
So, Crystal, you started on piano as your first instrument?
Yeah, my mom tried to put me in like piano lessons. That didn't last for a month. I was like, it was a terrible teacher.
Yeah.
So I was like, and like learning, when you don't have a great teacher, you don't want to do it. So I tried to get classically trained, had a really bad experience. And then the one who took me under at church, he wasn't class. I think he was classically trained, but he didn't push me through the traditional route of, hey, look at this song book and you do these exercises. He basically gave me like chord charts.
Yeah.
And here's your chords. This is how I would play it. So I did a lot of more of a listening. I can play by ear and a mimic thing. So Chad's the classic trained, while I'm all ear trained. So I definitely have a.
So he's the jazz, you're the soul.
Yeah. There we go.
I mean, it's
For
all.
sure.
No. So when did you, Crystal? When did you like come back to the church and start? I mean, you said you were a leader for how many years? You were a worship minister?
Yeah, so it was a little bit, it was kind of, I took different leadership roles while I was at church. So being a leader when I was in my youth group, I probably stepped away from the church a little bit after high school. And then I started easing back in probably in my mid-20s.
So not a long
Not a long time.
That's good.
But it was enough. There was enough lessons in that small time. Like, oh Lord, the conviction with the Holy Spirit was there, whispering in my ear, Crystal, you shouldn't be here. Crystal, you shouldn't make that decision. So definitely, I definitely learned fast. And again, I do have this more story with, bad relationships. And that was kind of my, with not having a father figure and the father's love. I didn't understand all that stuff. So I was in that kind of identity, figuring out about love or anything like that. So, but I probably started coming back to church probably a little bit in my mid-20s, and then started getting back into church, my same family church. And then my mentor was still there. And then maybe a few years in, the pastor, the whole leadership group came and they say, hey, we want you to take on the worship team and be the music minister of the whole team.
No, what does that role mean?
Yeah.
What does music minister mean? Because we have at our church we have
A worship pastor. Yeah.
which I mean he's paid on staff as a pastor to and he designs the worship.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that the same role as a worship minister?
You can say that. I mean, less pressure. I mean, my role was really to oversee the music part of the work of the whole church. So everything from Sunday morning, get a team together, build the people up, speak into their lives, mentor people. And then everything in between, we had a lot of different outside services. So always responsible for the music part
Right.
of our, anniversaries coming up, conventions, all those things, conferences.
Funerals.
Oh, I did plenty of
Funerals.
funerals.
You do a lot of them.
I
Yep.
did a lot of that. So I was responsible for all of it, being mid-20s.
Were you paid on staff?
I was not paid.
So
It
you were
was
just a
all
volunteer staff? Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of it, I did a lot of team building. So that was kind of what I love to do, is build people up. I wasn't classically trained to teach people new instruments, but I was really good at trying to feel out the gold. Like, this person has something, I can work with them as much as I can to get them onto the worship team. So I was really in charge of building teams.
How did that look from the start? Was that a little daunting to start off with, or were you like, yeah, I got this?
Well, I think
Get the head shake.
for some
I got
reason-
all this.
It's really, really, really interesting, right? Because I started in a worship team really young, and I knew worship was my calling. And I knew there was something that God was telling and whispering, is like, this is what you're meant to do here in the church. And so when I was given or asked to do this position, it wasn't a surprise, because I think I had leaders already trying to build me up to that. So it wasn't daunting per se. It was probably the most intimidating, because our worship team had a huge range in ages. So I had the young 15-year-old to the 40-plus-year-old. So
Right.
I was leading such a vast group of different skills. And so how I coming in, I'm like, the people who are older than me, they see me as a young tot, and now I'm their leader when it comes to music.
Yep.
And so that was probably the more daunting thing, right? And especially being part of this small Filipino church, there is a sense of respect and elder, to respect your elders, and don't boss them around. They're not your boss. And so it became this weird dynamic for me. How do I correct my elder when it came to the area that God had put me in, right?
So how did you
music.
find to do that though? I mean, because ultimately, I know this sounds horrible, but ultimately that needs to be done.
For sure.
I mean, because if you're going to be the leader, inevitably there's always somebody who's going to test you. Number one,
for sure.
And usually for me, there's somebody who stands out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, oh yeah, I know that guy or that that lady or whatever. But how do you? I mean, the funny thing is for me, I'm a sacrificial lamb kind of guy. Like if I go in and take over an absolute just soup sandwich, you go in there, you're just looking and going like, okay, first of all, I got to find my sacrificial lamb, because then everyone will know I'm serious, right? There's always somebody who I have to go in and go like, well, you're my biggest cancer. I'm cutting you out. You're gone, you know? And then everyone's going like, oh, wow, they will kick somebody out. Doesn't matter who it is type deal. But you being young, mid-20s, going in, and then you're dealing with 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds, probably 60-year-olds at the same time, with a respect culture, and a church culture, but still wanting to be able to be a leader. How did you pray about that? Did you?
I mean, it was definitely a lot. I got a lot of coaching of how to approach certain things with my mentors, and but I think what I had set up in this worship team. So this was something that all of our worship team members were supposed to do. So we had a commitment letter. It was basically the rules, this is the rules of engagement of how you get, what makes you qualified for this position, what is expected of you as a leader. So I actually had already something that everybody already agreed to.
Okay, yeah.
So I think that was probably the most easiest thing.
You had a constitution to stand on.
Yes, I had a contract. Everybody had to sign it.
Right.
Everybody, I mean, that was something that I always had to refer to. Like, hey, this is being asked of us, and we made this commitment. So it was a lot of conversations I would have to have with a lot of people is more of a partnership conversation.
Yeah.
And But did I do it well? I mean, I think I was still learning through that age, but it was more of my job was to hold accountable than instead of getting people in trouble, right? Like, are we doing this? It's like, this is for the Lord. Why are we here? You know, and there were some people who just like didn't want to be there. I was like, why are you here then? You know, and there's times where I had to have them make that decision. Like, this is the commitment. If you don't want to, you know, like you still have the choice, you know?
Right, yeah.
So that was what I had to work through, you know, like, I think that's really important.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's what you have
to this.
I think that's like any volunteer capacities. Or like, I know this is a commitment. This is what, you know, we're all agreeing to, and we just need to hold a child to that. So that was what I had to do. I mean, a lot of prayer, a lot of how to say certain things, and how to approach people, and was definitely still a learning curve for me. But I had really good people around me to help me through that stuff.
How long do you think it took you to get your stride?
I'm still getting my stride with all of this.
Well, I'm gonna
if you want to
put
infuse a
small
bit.
plug with a question though.
Yeah.
Was your mentor still on the team who helped
He
you?
was actually, he was on it, and then he started fading away from it. Like, he started stepping away. So, I mean, you know, I would bring the people would say the big guns, right? Because everybody respected him because he was older, and everybody kind of grew up under his direction. So I did leverage a little bit of that. But he did start stepping away after I took over a little bit. But yeah, that's right. What was the question now?
No, that was
like
the
how you
question.
get stride.
Yeah, how to get your stride, because it's always good, like, if you have a good mentor. I mean, because I've had good and bad mentors. And my experience, and I think I talked about this with Barry and Stephanie, I've learned more from people's mistakes.
For sure.
Watching my mentors make mistakes and do things the wrong way, and just looking at it going like, well, I'm never going to do that. I mean, not because it was something like horrible, but just the way you treat people.
For sure.
I've seen people who were my mentors and who really treated me well, but treat somebody else really, really bad. And I'm going like, you know what? I'm going to treat everybody across the board with respect. We're all grown, you know, adults here, and we're all volunteering our time with worship, with my work. It's like we're all getting paid a good wage, but nobody comes to work to be talked down to. Yeah. And I could see my mentors doing that stuff sometimes. So I learned a lot more from like bad experiences.
For sure.
And not necessarily aimed at me, but just necessarily aimed in general. But I've had some really, really good mentors who really taught me, and I was able to take long strides because of their good mentorship, you know, and that's coming in as a young person, having that mentor who's good, but it can kind of like start fading, and then let you just kind of like ebb in. That's a good way of doing a good transition. Hey everybody, thank you for listening to another episode of Life and Worship. We talked with Chad and Crystal Berry. Join us again on the 5th for the next section of this podcast. If you liked it, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.